In November of 2016, the defendant's life had reached a tipping point. She was no longer pregnant. She had told her friends and family that she was going to have a baby. She had a baby shower. She bought a car seat. She had made her home ready for a child. You saw the photos from the search warrant issued in Dallas. She had a baby room, baby clothes. You saw the photos from the baby shower her friends had given for her. But she wasn't pregnant. So she had a choice. Either acknowledge that she had, for whatever reason, continued to go through the motions as if she were pregnant, or acknowledge that she was not pregnant and face that reality, or find another baby. The state charged Ms. Sesmas with first-degree premeditated murder. The definition is there in front of you. It's very straightforward. That she killed her intentionally with premeditation. The killing was done with premeditation. And that it occurred on or about the 17th day of November of 2016. Not all that complicated. We'll talk about the facts that I want you to consider in arriving at that verdict. A couple definitions you need to consider. Intentional, because at the end of the day, what happened here really isn't much in controversy. But what she was thinking, what her intent was, is really the crux of this trial. So let's talk about intentional. What does that mean? A defendant acts intentionally when it is the defendant's desire or conscious objective to do the act complained about by the state. She put a gun to Laura's head and she pulled the trigger. This wasn't just reckless. I mean, she wasn't driving down the street too fast, weaving in and out of traffic. She put a gun to someone's head and pulled the trigger. Premeditated means to have thought the matter over beforehand. In other words, to have formed the design or intent to kill before the act. Now, there is no specific time period for premeditation. It doesn't have to take weeks or months or hours or whatever, but it can't just be a spontaneous, or the word here is instantaneous, intentional taking of another person's life. Again, what was the defendant's situation in November of 2016? She says she has told no one other than Laura. It's interesting. Only person in her life she told that she was no longer pregnant was Laura Abarca, a person she worked with for a period of time, but was 2 states away in Kansas. But she had a baby shower. She prepared her home for a baby. She got a car seat. She was ready for a baby that was not coming. She even had this baby shower. This is a picture of her with her boyfriend, I guess. It's a girl. Laura, what's going on in her life at this time? She told the defendant that she knew she was having a girl as early as July. Now, yesterday, the detective Asmussen, Hans, he was going through all the stuff in the phones. It was long. It was kind of laborious. But there was a lot of information contained there. One of the things that was contained was the fact that as early as July, they're talking back and forth to one another. And Laura is telling the defendant, it's a girl. My boyfriend, or what does she call him, fiance, he's excited. We're going to name her Sophia Victoria. She's even got a name picked out for her. Never in any of the chats that we found was the word adoption, giving the child even brought up. But let's, Hans did say one thing. There's a ton of information in all those gigabytes. Let's assume for the sake of argument we missed it. Maybe there was some agreement. That's what she wants you to believe. And then Laura backed out. It sounds like motivation for killing somebody. I'm not sure how that helps her cause. I mean, to add insult to injury, she then not only backs out of the plan, but Laura then, after the baby is born, sends her pictures of the baby in her arms with her man kissing her on the cheek. If they had ever really had an agreement, I mean, what sort of cruelty must that have been for the defendant? If you believe there was ever an agreement. No evidence of it, but if you believe it. Sounds like motivation, a reason to really want to take someone's life. What else is going on with Laura? Her friends, family, co-workers, they threw her a shower in Wichita. She prepared her home. Her mother, her fiance Manuel, who you heard from that first day, all say she was happy to be a mother. She was excited. She gave no one any indication she wanted to give her baby away. Again, she sent pictures of the baby after it was born with her and Manuel to this woman, to the defendant. If this was some sort of backing out of this agreement, how cruel must that have been to the defendant? Reason enough maybe to get in a car and drive from Dallas, Texas to come up here and take that baby back. Again, though, I'd submit to you there's not a shred of evidence anywhere that there was ever any discussion about sending Sophia home to this woman. The defendant, what does she think down in Texas? Well, she went and got a gun by her own admission 3 to 4 weeks before the killing. She goes and buys a .40 caliber 6-hour. She knows it's loaded. She tells two different stories. The guy she bought it from loaded it, maybe she loaded it, whatever. It's loaded. She knows it. She takes it to Kansas to what? To threaten, because she knows she's going to need to threaten Laura. Now, this is before she arrives on the 16th, the day before, and is told, you're not taking the baby. So even in her own story, in her own construct that she's put together to explain this behavior, even by her own admission, 3 to 4 weeks before the trigger is pulled, she knows she's going to need to bring a gun if she's going to get away with that baby. Sound like intent? Sound like thinking the matter over beforehand? One other thing that was, all those photos that, remember McMurray, he was the Texas cop, older guy, and we're going through all those photos with him. There was one thing on the floor in the kitchen that looked like on a linoleum. It's a pellet gun. Looked like a real gun. One of those replica-looking deals. You just want to threaten somebody. Why do you need a .40 caliber 6-hour? Why don't you just bring the pellet gun? She had that. She left that. Or, unless she was two-fisted in it, I suppose, I don't know. Maybe she brought it with her, but she didn't use it. Why not just use that? She finds out from Laura that Laura had the baby. This is in the chats, back and forth. And that Laura would be home alone on Thursday. Going through all of that stuff from Hans Asmussen, all those chats, took a long time. Well, what did you know at the conclusion? She knew Laura was going to be home from the hospital with that baby. She'd be alone by Thursday. What does she do in response? That's the afternoon of the 15th. And the next, by just after midnight, she says she leaves Dallas at 2 a.m. She's wasting no time getting out here. Her baby's waiting for her. What else do we know? Screenshot. This is, again, from Detective Asmussen. This comes from the defendant's phone. You know that it says, Tia Laura, Aunt Laura. Confusing because of Laura Abarca. This is not the victim. This is the defendant or somebody in her family that she calls Aunt Laura. My daughter has already been born. I've been calling you since then. What's the most important thing on this sheet, this page? The bottom, 11/16 of 16. She sent this to friends and family before she ever had pulled the trigger. Sound like she's thought the matter over beforehand? And folks, she's going back to Texas with that baby. The die is cast. Other people she sent images to. Laura, somebody called Buncha 15, Jacqueline, Fear, and Fiona. Interestingly enough, Fiona, and we know on the 16th, she's already been over to Laura's house. She's seen the baby. She's talked to Lupe and to Laura. That's earlier in the afternoon. She's gone by, what did we decide, 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon? She's sending these pictures. She's seen this woman with her child, been told, you're not going home with her. And here she is again. The next morning, the morning of the murder, she's sending more images. And what does she send? What does she send? A picture that Laura sent her from the hospital. A baby's been born, sharing her new arrival. When it walks out, that is the image that the defendant sends to her friends and family. How about this one? We don't put these up here to try to be emotional about this. This is the photo that the victim, Laura, sent to her friend. And what does her friend do with it? She cuts them out. Figuratively, literally cuts them out. And this image is the one that the defendant sends to her friends and family. Sound like she's thought the matter over beforehand? I mean, how is this going to play out? Laura's house that first day. What does Lupe hear her ask? She's asking about maybe moving here and wants to get a phone number for the landlord, right? One of the questions that Lupe heard her ask, the defendant asked Laura, was, do you have security here? Interesting question to ask somebody the day before you're going to come back and pull the trigger and kill them. Sound like she's premeditating it? Sound like she's thinking the matter over beforehand? She knows when she leaves. She heard it already in the chat, but now she knows because she's heard it from Lupe herself. Well, Lupe's going to be gone. She'll be at work. Manuel's going to be at work. He's already at work on the 16th. I'll come make you soup. I'll take care of you tomorrow. Right. She took photos of Sophia while it appears that she took photos of Sophia while she was in the home on the 16th, the day before the murder. Why do we know that? Because of the geolocator and because of the timestamp on those photos. And she sends those out to friends. We got this photo, the one on the left, from Laura's phone. Look at the background. This is from the Alcatel One Touch, the one taken out of Dallas, the defendant's phone. She, at some point, obviously took a picture of the baby in Laura's home. And she sent this side, this is the one on the right, to her friends, even before she pulled the trigger. That bottom one I wanted to make. While she's at Laura's house, obviously they spoke. Well, Lupe says she heard nothing about the baby being exchanged. Well, let's suspend disbelief for a moment and say maybe they whispered it to each other out of Lupe's earshot. Right? But we know on the back end of that they were chatting with one another after the meeting, and Detective Asmussen read into the record some of the things they said through the English translation. I'm going to repeat the whole thing, but the gist was, keep your head up. You don't need a man, you'll be okay, encouraging her. As if perhaps the defendant had told her about her problems, marital problems, whatever, relationship issues. Not, I'm so sorry to have let you down, I know we agreed to this, anything about this child. Nothing. It's about relationship issues. The day of. I'm not going to put those photos up again. You saw them once. You have access to them. And they are, especially the injuries to Laura, they're difficult. But if you can get past that and look for what they tell you. In the crime scene, yes, seeing Laura there on that couch with that terrible wound to her forehead is disturbing. But look at the rest of the room. It's not disturbed. The defendant says she had to get the gun to threaten, so she's going to come into this room now with this gun. I don't know if she had it in her hand. One would assume she didn't walk in with it in her hand, otherwise she'd risk being seen outside. But at some point she withdraws the weapon. This is a woman in her own home with her friend who's now drawn a weapon, a gun. And Laura sits on the couch. The wound is a contact wound. You saw that photo And it is difficult to look at, but if you can get past the ugliness of it and look at it for what it tells you. There's soot at the top. What did he say? 9 to 3? Like if you looked at like a clock face. But there's none below. Because it was what? The word used was sealed. It is so tightly against her forehead that no gas even escapes underneath. Is that reckless? What did she think was going to happen when she stuck the gun to somebody's head and pulled the trigger? There's two, one of the ballistics guy, Justin Rankin, he said they have passive safeties. You have to give a strong, steady pull, and I don't remember the exact word he used, but essentially hold it for a second, or press it and withdraw it there before that gun will pull. Why did he say? To avoid the risk of accidental discharge. So she takes the gun out, manages it to get it across the room to where Laura sits, place it against her head with no reaction from Laura, no disturbance, no fight, and pull that trigger strongly and steadily enough and hold it so it'll shoot and send that bullet into Laura's head. Blood on her forearms. She didn't even have a chance to react. I'm not going to ask you to speculate, but go through the possibilities here. She walked in, said something to distract her, and just did it as fast as she possibly could before Laura could even react. Maybe Laura was asleep. She asked her to close her eyes. I don't know. I'm not going to ask you to speculate. But my point is somehow she managed to cross the distance from the threshold of the door to where Laura sat on the couch, pressed that gun against her forehead, and Laura didn't even have time to get her arms up. Well, let's say maybe after the bullet went into her head, blood came out. And that's what caused the blood on the forearms. Okay, fair enough. But what isn't there? Blood on the backs of her arms. Even if that's the cause, Laura, wouldn't she at least raise her arms up, done something to get something on the back of her arm? There's none. After the fact, what does she do? After pulling that trigger, well, one thing she does, I forgot to put in here, she managed to go get Sophia, put her in a diaper bag, gather up some additional clothes, and walk out to where her truck was waiting, her car seat is waiting, and take her baby. Oh, good. Got that baby in her arms, she told the detective. She goes straight back to Texas. She goes, first place she goes is to T.L. Laura's house, the person she had told the day before, my baby's been born, to present her newborn to her friends and family in Texas. She does think enough to send a chat back to Laura. Hey, I'm headed to see my uncles in Indiana, or words to that effect. This thing about my uncles, and then I'm going to Indiana. It's interesting. She'd have the time and the wherewithal to send a false lead back just in case. Sound like somebody who didn't think this over, who wasn't prepared, who wasn't acting intentionally, who just sort of lost it recklessly. So the photo she took of herself on the 18th. She looked all broke up about what she did the day before, and I'm not trying to be snarky, but does that look like somebody who is lamenting what they did the day before, who did something other than, who woke up the next day and found that they had done something other than what they intended and premeditated? That's the photo she took of herself the day after the murder. Her only plan, she says, was to threaten. All right, let's play this out. She's just going over to threaten. Threaten somebody she's known for 7 or 8 years, who knows her face, who knows her name. You know, when the plain view man, I think counsel called him an invented person. All right. Well, there was one question the detective asked her, though, about the plain view guy. What was he going to use to tie her up with? Good question. I'd ask the same thing in this context. What if Miss if Miss Sesmas is going to drive all the way from Texas up here with this gun to threaten, her only goal is to threaten so she can get the baby and go home with it. What does she plan to use to incapacitate Laura? Point the gun, I'm going to take your baby, now don't move or call anybody. She didn't even take her cell phone. Still sitting next to Laura. There's no evidence of gloves or a mask or a rope or duct tape or anything. I mean, how was she even going to get out of the parking lot? Well, the defendant was just, in a panic. She wanted this baby so much, she wasn't thinking about anything else, and she was so focused, she was acting irrationally, and this wasn't a plan, it was just a chaotic thing. Okay, if she had come in guns a-blazing the day before, maybe you could buy that. She came in the day before, was calm and cool, hung out with Lupe, figured out what she needed to know, no security. I'm going to be gone tomorrow. Manuel's going to be gone tomorrow. Okay, I'll be back tomorrow. Pretty under control. Came back the next day ready. There are lesser included offenses. Second degree intentional. The first lesser is simply, it's the same definition of first degree murder. It just takes out premeditation. If you don't think she premeditated it, if you don't think she thought the matter would be over beforehand, it was just an intentional killing, then it's second degree intentional murder. I'd submit to you that the cell phone by itself just piles on the evidence of premeditation. And if you're not convinced it was intentional, then you go down to the lesser included offenses of reckless second degree murder or reckless involuntary. Recklessness is a conscious disregard of a substantial and unjustifiable risk. A substantial risk? She stuck a gun to somebody's head and pulled the trigger. It's more than that, folks. Kidnapping and the interference with parental custody, I'd submit to you, not even any question about those. Of course she kidnapped a child. She took her by force. You read the definition when you get back in the jury room of kidnapping. The interference with parental custody. The question of this trial is, was this an intentional, premeditated murder? Was it simply an intentional killing, or was it something far less reckless? When she walked into that apartment on the 17th day of November 2016, there were only two ways for this to end. She had gotten in the car, picked that truck in Dallas, Texas, with a gun in a car seat. And she drove all the way up here. At any point along the way, she could have said, "This is crazy. What am I doing?" Go back and just tell them, I was so desperate for a child, tell them when you got to Wichita, you lost the baby and go home. She did. She went over the first day, she checked the place out, figured out the lay of the land. She'd never been there before. She had to ask how to get there. Figured out who would be there, who wouldn't. Make sure there's no security. But when she walked back in that next day, on the 17th, moments before the trigger was pulled, this was going to end one of two ways. She was either going to have to go home, back to Texas, and explain to family and friends and acquaintances and people why she had no baby, why she had continued to say she was pregnant, why she accepted their gifts and prepared her home. At some point, someone was probably asking, "Whose baby were you sending us pictures of?" That'd be a little uncomfortable. But if she's not willing to accept this, if this is not an option, and I submit to you, when she crossed the Oklahoma line into Kansas, this was no longer an option. This plays out one other way. She's going back to Texas, she's going to have a baby. It's going to be hers. She either had to hope that breathing a loaded gun at a woman who'd known her for years, a friend, was going to make that woman go, "Okay, take the baby forever," I won't tell anyone. I won't call the cops. Go ahead. I'm not being facetious here, but let's play this out. For that to have any merit, she's got to believe that when she walks in that home waving the gun is going to cause Laura to say, oh, fine, you can raise my baby. If she doesn't believe that's going to happen, the only way she gets away with that kid, the only way she gets out of the parking lot, let alone Kansas, is she eliminates the witness, the only person who knows what she did. You got to kill Laura. Appreciate your patience. For a lot of evidence, I submit to you that on the 17th day of November 2016, the defendant had come to an impasse. She had come to a crisis. She either had to come home with a baby or accept that she was not going to be a mother again. She had one option: take it from her friend and take the friend's life to do so, or accept that there would be no baby in her life. The evidence in this case shows you that she took that gun out, put it against her friend's head, tight enough to seal the contact on the lower half of that barrel, and she pulled that trigger, causing instantaneous cessation of consciousness and rapid death, according to the coroner. And she gathered up that baby, put it in a diaper bag, poked her head out the door. That scene, Lacey Webb, got her truck, and headed back south to start her new life. If it wasn't for that WhatsApp chat, when she went to bed that night, she thought she'd wake up and raise this child and her new life would begin, just as she dreamed. Just as she reflected in that selfie she took of herself. It had worked until the cops showed up and brought Sophia back to her family, her real family back in Wichita. I'd ask you to find the defendant guilty as charged. Thank you.